My dad chose his secretary over my mom. After 30 years together, now he's broke, jobless, and begging to stay after she destroyed my engagement. My dad is 54, and my mom is 52. 4 years ago, my dad was promoted to director of the company he had been working at for 25 years. It was a huge milestone, and we were all incredibly proud of him, especially since he had joined that very same company as an intern. My mom, on the other hand, owns her own advertising firm. While it's not as big as my dad's company, she runs the show, and I've always admired that. So yeah, I come from a well-off, successful family. As for me, I'm 26 and a thriving graphic designer. I don't work for any agency. I freelance and will be launching my own venture soon. Fingers crossed. I credit a lot of this to my mom. She had already made her mark in the digital world back when the internet boom began, so I was introduced to freelancing early on. I started learning graphic design in my teens, and by the time I graduated high school, I was already making thousands each week. I won't pretend my parents had a flawless marriage. In fact, I hadn't seen them spend much time together for years. They were both deeply focused on their careers and personal ambitions, which left little time for each other. But it wasn't always like that. When I was younger, they were the perfect team. They clicked on everything, especially their shared love for work. They were ambitious, vibrant, and the most fun-loving people I knew. I had a very happy and wholesome childhood. It wasn't until college that I noticed the growing distance between them. I assumed it was just a phase where people begin to prioritize their individual goals. After all, they never argued or said anything bad about one another. But eventually, I found out it was more than that. My dad had started losing interest in my mom after she went through menopause. He said her hormonal changes were too much to deal with. And then, of course, he found comfort in his secretary. After being promoted to director, Dad was officially assigned a secretary. But their affair had already begun when word of his promotion first started circulating around the office. Once his promotion became official, he got even more serious about her. When my mom discovered what was going on, she didn't cause a scene. She simply wished him good luck and set him free. That's one of the things I admire most about her, her grace and strength. But before letting him go, she made sure to claim what was rightfully hers. She took the house they had lived in and a significant share of Dad's savings as alimony. She wasn't being greedy. She and Dad had built that wealth together, and she wasn't about to let some opportunist enjoy the fruits of her labor. After the divorce, Dad was left with almost nothing but his car and a small portion of his savings, most of which he lavished on his newfound love, his secretary. Their divorce was clean and quick. Dad didn't argue with any of her demands, probably because he knew she'd crush him if he tried. Thankfully, I had already moved into my own place before all this happened. I'd rented a beautiful 2-bedroom apartment during college to enjoy life on my own terms. I was earning well through freelancing, so I could easily afford rent and utilities. I didn't want to take sides. I loved both of them. I'm an adult, and I understood their perspectives. Sure, I was a bit closer to Mom, but I stayed on good terms with Dad too. I respected him for always supporting Mom's success and being a good partner, at least until things fell apart. After the divorce, Dad and his secretary, girlfriend, whatever you want to call her, started living together in a rented apartment. Mom had thrown him out, so he didn't have much choice. His company had a strict no-dating policy when it came to co-workers. He tried to keep things under wraps until he figured out his next move. But the woman he was dating was too excited to keep it quiet. She shared the news with her work best friend, who clearly wasn't much of a friend, and the information leaked. Both of them were fired. Yes, Dad lost his director position because of her. And Mom? She had the last laugh. A few months ago, I bought my own house, a luxurious 3-bedroom penthouse. You see, the thing is, last week my dad came to visit me and asked for a favor. He wanted to know if he and Linda, his 29-year-old girlfriend, could stay at my place. Dad is planning to marry her next month, and he hopes to move in with me afterward. Right now he's unemployed and trying his hand at a few new ventures, but they'll take time to get off the ground. In the meantime, he's living off his savings. Ever since he and Linda both lost their jobs, things have been tight. I told him I needed time to think about it. After all, I moved out to enjoy my own space and privacy, and having them live here would definitely interfere with that. Dad promised they wouldn't be a bother, and that I could continue living however I liked. I discussed it with Mom, and she said the choice was mine. She's not a spiteful woman. She simply reminded me that I was old enough to make these decisions on my own. I genuinely want to help Dad, but I don't know what kind of person Linda really is. That's where the confusion lies. Dad has always been a loving and supportive father, and I feel terrible about the idea of turning him away, especially now when he needs help the most. I'd appreciate it if anyone could share their own experience with something similar. Hey guys, sorry for the delay in updating. Let me pick up where I left off. After a lot of thought and conversations, I agreed to let Dad and Linda move in. Dad said they'd shift after their wedding. I had assumed the wedding would be a low-key affair. It was, after all, a second marriage for both. But no, it was extravagant. And right after the wedding, they jetted off on a lavish honeymoon. Honestly, I couldn't help but wonder where all that money came from, but I figured it was none of my business. It's been a couple of months since they moved in. As I mentioned before, Linda is a single mother to a 5-year-old daughter, who is, unfortunately, like a miniature version of her mom in the worst way. She runs wild around the house, making a mess wherever she goes. And no, she's not the sweet, innocent kind of child you're imagining. She's one of those spoiled kids who demand everything they see, and if they don't get it, they throw tantrums and break things. Dad still hasn't managed to get his business off the ground. He's chasing investors, but hasn't locked anything down yet. Meanwhile, I haven't seen Linda going for any job interviews. She seems perfectly content lounging around, living off Dad's savings. Almost every day, someone or the other visits her, family, friends, even random people she apparently met at the grocery store. She calls herself a social butterfly, but really, she's just a gossip queen who spends her day on the couch talking about other people. That kind of behavior may seem normal to others, but it's jarring for me. I've never seen my mom just lazing around even when she was sick. She used to work weekends too, sometimes for just a few hours while everyone else was still sleeping. I don't know if Dad has been upfront with Linda about his financial situation. Judging by her lifestyle, it doesn't look like she's aware. It's either that Dad's hiding the truth from her, or he lied to me about being broke. The second option seems more likely, considering I saw firsthand how much he lost in the divorce. Someone needs to tell this woman that Dad isn't rolling in money, and that if she wants a comfortable life, she better get up and contribute. Anyway, they're not my main concern right now. Because here's the thing, I'm completely over the moon after meeting Alice, 23. She's a vlogger, not super famous yet, so I won't reveal her identity, but I've absolutely fallen for her. I was a fan of her content, and recently I started editing her videos. That's how we connected. She was a client of mine. We hadn't met in person and only spoke over virtual calls. Sounds like a textbook online romance, right? But it's true. I fell for her while editing her raw footage. She's stunning in her travel vlogs, but it was the unedited moments that really stole my heart. Okay, enough gushing over her beauty. Let me get to the point. After weeks of hesitation, I finally asked her out last month. It wasn't a proper date per se, more like a casual, work-related meetup. But wow, she's even more gorgeous in real life. She picked up right away that I was interested in her, and to my surprise, she welcomed it. Since then, we've been hanging out regularly, and I'm really hoping things get serious between us. Most of the time, Alice and I hang out at her place. Privacy isn't an issue since she lives with her teenage sister, 2 dogs and 3 cats in a house they inherited from their grandfather. After their parents divorced and remarried, the girls were raised by their grandfather until he passed away 4 years ago. Now, Alice is the legal guardian of her younger sister, which means she can't just move in with me, no matter the circumstances. Her responsibilities come first. Still, I keep hoping that once Dad's business finally takes off, things will get easier for all of us. Linda and her daughter don't bother me too much, but lately, I've noticed Linda starting to overstep her boundaries. It only happened twice. She made a few comments about my lifestyle, but I shut her down immediately. I'm not someone who lets people invade my space. If she crosses the line again, I'll make sure she knows exactly where it is. Hey guys. Today marks exactly 1 year since my last update, and there's a lot to unpack, so bear with me. First off, I'm engaged. Yes, I proposed to Alice last week. I got down on one knee and asked her to be my forever. Some might say it's too soon, but I've been sure about her since the day we met. Now for the situation at home, not great. Linda has turned out to be an absolute nightmare. I can't blame her entirely though. I suspect Dad hasn't been fully honest about his financial situation and has likely fueled her inflated sense of entitlement. At first, things were tolerable. Linda had her share of guests, family, friends, random acquaintances, but they kept to themselves and didn't bother me. But soon enough, Linda started pushing limits. She made unsolicited remarks about how messy my room was and how I needed to do my laundry more often. Excuse me? My own mother never commented on how I kept my room once I grew up, and this woman thinks she has the right? I let it slide a few times, but when it turned into nagging, I spoke to Dad in private and asked him to handle it. He apologized and told her to back off. She didn't like that. She knew I had complained to Dad and clearly held a grudge, but she kept her distance until Dad left for a business trip to San Francisco to meet with potential investors. That's when she tried to unleash her full authority over me. She began bossing me around, telling me to do the dishes, clean the laundry, mow the lawn. Naturally, I ignored her. I cook for myself, clean when I want, and I'm not about to let anyone dictate terms in my own house. But she didn't take it lightly. One day she lost it and screamed at me, calling me a lazy freeloader living off my dad's money. That's when I realized how delusional she was. She honestly thought I was sponging off my dad, living rent-free in his house, doing nothing all day. What she didn't know was the exact opposite was true. I owned the house, and I was the one supporting myself through my freelance work. I work from home, which apparently looked like doing nothing to her. Just because I'm on my laptop all day doesn't mean I'm jobless. I wanted to clarify things right then, but I didn't know what Dad had told her, and I didn't want to stir things up in his absence. He was already under enough pressure. As if one Linda wasn't enough, her daughter was turning into her mini-me. That child is a walking disaster. She pulls down my curtains, plays with my expensive gadgets, and breaks something nearly every other day. And Linda? She does absolutely nothing to discipline her. That entire month while Dad was away, Linda tested every ounce of my patience. Her demands kept piling up. One day it was cleaning the kitchen, the next it was vacuuming the entire house. Of course, I never did any of it, but her constant nagging drove me to avoid the living room altogether. Even then, she'd knock on my bedroom door just to bark out orders. I felt like a prisoner in my own home. The moment Dad got back, I sat him down and told him everything. I couldn't take it anymore. Either she toned it down, or they'd have to leave. He apologized and explained that Linda was 3 months pregnant and blamed her hormones for her behavior. Funny, isn't it? Dad left my mom because her menopausal hormones were too much to handle. Now let's see how he plans to deal with Linda's pregnancy mood swings. Regardless, I'm seriously considering kicking Linda out of my house. Dad begged me to give him a few more months to sort everything out. I told him about Alice, and that I was planning to settle down with her soon, and I'd need my space. I hadn't proposed to her yet at the time, but I made it clear that I needed privacy. He promised that within 6 months, his business would be up and running, and he'd find a place of his own. I asked him if he had told Linda the house was mine because she was starting to act like she owned the place. He avoided the question and quickly changed the subject. That told me all I needed to know. He hadn't told her and probably had no intention of doing so. God knows what he sees in that woman to put everything on the line for her. Whatever. I've been spending most of my time at Alice's place, so it's a relief not to deal with them daily. Still, I can't wait for the day Linda is out of my life for good. This woman, Linda, is absolutely relentless. In my last update, I mentioned that I'd proposed to Alice and planned to marry her within a few months, but it seems Linda has made it her mission to ruin everything for me. Just a month after my engagement, Alice came to visit me. Usually, she doesn't come to my place since I stay at hers most of the time, but this time I had caught a terrible viral fever. So bad I could barely lift my head. Alice knew about my complicated family situation, but not the details. Like how Linda acts like the house belongs to her. I'm not the type to gossip or complain, so I never really told Alice much about Linda. But while I was bedridden, Alice stayed over to take care of me. That's when Linda saw her chance. She tried to poison Alice against me. She told Alice I was a lazy freeloader who did nothing all day. Luckily, Alice knew about my career and my income, so she defended me. But Linda didn't stop there. She shifted tactics and said it wasn't just about earning money. She claimed that I never helped around the house, and that she did all the cooking and cleaning for me. She even blamed my behavior on my so-called patriarchal upbringing, saying Dad never helped her either, not even during her pregnancy. Now, Alice isn't a gold digger. She doesn't care about my money, but she does care about emotional support and partnership. She wants a man who contributes to the household, not one who expects her to do everything. And honestly, I get that. This kind of thing might sound trivial to some men, but for a lot of women, it's a deal breaker. If that wasn't enough, Linda crossed an unforgivable line. She told Alice I had cheater's blood, just like my dad, who cheated on Mom to be with her. Then she flat out lied and said I had already cheated on Alice and brought other women into the house. Alice, stunned, asked for details. But when Linda tried to describe them, Alice recognized the women as my friends and co-workers. Linda doubled down and claimed she had seen me being intimate with them. It was complete nonsense. I was so sick at the time that I didn't even notice the change in Alice's behavior. She left for her house the next day. After about a week, once I recovered, I went to visit her. Something felt off right away. When I asked what was wrong, she brushed it off and said maybe we were rushing things. I knew that wasn't her talking. Alice isn't the indecisive type. When she said yes to my proposal, she meant it. I pressed her gently and asked if Linda had said something. At first she was hesitant to admit it, but eventually she opened up. That's when I laid everything out. The full truth about Linda, her toxic behavior, her lies, and how she was completely deluded about Dad's financial state. Alice listened. Her issue wasn't about money, it was about trust, partnership, and respect. She didn't want to end up with a man who'd treat her like a maid. I could tell the damage had already been done. The more I tried to convince Alice right then, the more distant she became. So I decided to give her space. But I knew what I had to do. I had to cut the poison out of my life. That poison was Linda. I went home and confronted her directly. I shouted at her about everything she told Alice. She gave me a smug little smirk and said, "Truth." That was it for me. I stormed into her room, started throwing her belongings out into the living room, yelling all the while. She cursed me out and warned me not to cross the line. She threatened to make me homeless if I didn't stop. She even said she'd call the cops and report me to Dad. I laughed, an angry, almost hysterical laugh, and told her to go ahead. Then she shouted something that made my blood boil. She screamed, "This is my house! You don't get to mess with me here!" That's when I snapped. I told her the truth, that the house was mine, that Dad had begged me to let them stay here, and that she had no right, no power, and no place to claim anything. It would have been better if she had just shut her filthy mouth and left. Instead, she hurled abuses at me, and even tried grabbing me by the collar to drag me out of my own house. I pushed her off and warned her never to lay a finger on me again. Dad arrived shortly after. I'm guessing she called him the moment I started tossing her things out. He tried to calm me down, but I wasn't in the mood. I told him straight up that he had made the worst mistake of his life by bringing that woman into it. When I called her a whore, she lost it and demanded that Dad hit me. But instead, Dad snapped at her and told her to shut her mouth. She kept screaming at him to kick me out, and that's when Dad had no choice but to admit the truth, that the house belonged to me. The moment he said it, her face went blank. She looked betrayed and started calling him a liar, a cheater, and every name in the book. Dad pulled me aside and begged to give Linda one last chance. But there was no way I was going to do that. She had tried to sabotage my relationship with Alice. She had caused me enough mental and emotional pain. I looked him dead in the eye and said, "You can take that woman wherever you want, but I'm not letting her turn my place into her circus." Dad finally gave in. He packed their things and left. The entire time I could hear Linda cursing me, cursing Dad, and even dragging my mother into her tirade. I wanted to walk out there and slap some sense into her, but I didn't want to cause any more chaos in my life. And now that the source of all that trouble was walking out the door, I stayed put. It's been a week since they left, and while it was immensely satisfying to finally stand up to Linda, I know I crossed the line by using that word. I let my anger take control. My relationship with Dad is fractured now, maybe beyond repair, but I hope, one day, he'll understand. Alice means everything to me, and Linda tried to destroy that. The next day, I went to see my mom and told her everything. She laughed her heart out while sipping wine. "That's my mom for you. A woman of class and zero tolerance for nonsense." She invited Alice over for dinner and cleared up any misconceptions Linda had planted about our so-called patriarchal family. Her words reassured Alice. She told her the truth, that Dad had always been supportive and respectful, even after their separation. Mom doesn't impose her opinions, but she speaks with such clarity and conviction that you can't help but be swayed. She advised me to give Alice some space and let her come to her decision on her own. I'm hopeful. After all, Alice is still wearing my ring. Mom joked that Linda would probably start manhunting again the moment she realizes Dad is broke. She even calls her a serial chaser, someone who hops from one rich man to another. And honestly, that made me laugh. As for Dad, I don't know where he stands now. And frankly, I've stopped feeling sorry for him. He made his bed. Now he has to lie in it. He chose wrong.